Close your eyes for a second and feel it, that low familiar hum in your chest. Not quite anxiety, not quite grief, it's the sound of a little kid still waiting for the parents who are never going to show up the way you needed them to. You are sitting in your adult body now, but part of you is still 8 years old, scanning the room for the next explosion, the next silent withdrawal, the next you are too sensitive that landed like a slap. That's the hidden pain of a child raised by toxic parents, and its lifelong effect is still running your nervous system like an invisible landlord who never fixes anything but always collects rent in the form of your peace. Here is the cruel paradox. No one ever told you the very survival skills that protected you then are the same ones quietly sabotaging you now. You learned to become emotionally self-sufficient before you could ride a bike. You learned to read their moods like a meteorologist reads storm clouds. You learned to shrink, to appease, to disappear inside yourself, so their chaos would not swallow you whole. That hyper-independence saved your childhood, but it is slowly starving your adulthood. The armor that once kept the arrows out is now the cage that keeps love out. The vigilance that once kept you safe is now the voice that tells you rest is dangerous and needing people is weakness. You survived their toxicity by becoming the parent they refused to be, and today we're going to name it, feel it, and finally begin the long walk out of that house you were never allowed to leave. This pattern has a name in psychology: emotional parentification. You were forced, not asked, forced to regulate your parents' emotions while your own were treated like noise. One day they raged, the next they withdrew into icy silence, and you, the child, became the shock absorber. Psychologists call this developmental trauma, not the loud single event kind that makes headlines, but the slow daily erosion that rewires your entire nervous system. Your amygdala stayed on high alert for decades, turning every neutral face into a potential threat. Your default mode network, the part of your brain that should be free to daydream and self-soothe, instead became a 24-hour courtroom where you were both defendant and prosecutor, endlessly replaying every moment you were not good enough. Attachment theory explains the rest. You didn't get the secure base every child is wired to expect. Instead, you developed a fearful-avoidant attachment, desperate for closeness, yet terrified it will cost you your soul. Your body learned that love is conditional, volatile, and ultimately unsafe, so it adapted by building walls disguised as independence. You don't just have trust issues, your nervous system literally believes that depending on another human is a life-threatening gamble. That's not drama, that's neurology, that's the lifelong effect. And the emotional cost, God, the emotional cost is almost too heavy to speak out loud. You paid for their inability to parent by giving up your childhood. You traded your authenticity for scraps of approval that never quite arrived. You learned to say I'm fine before you even knew what fine felt like. The grief is invisible because no one ever hit you in a way that left bruises anyone else could see. But inside you carry the quiet funeral of the child you were never allowed to be. You sacrificed your spontaneity, your anger, your needs, your voice, all so they could remain comfortable. Alice Miller, the Swiss psychoanalyst who spent her life studying toxic families, called this the drama of the gifted child not gifted in talent, gifted in the terrible talent of sensing exactly what your parents needed you to be so they wouldn't fall apart. You became their mirror, their therapist, their scapegoat, their savior. And in doing so, you orphaned yourself emotionally. The core fear that still drives you is devastatingly simple: if I am fully myself, they will leave, or worse, they will destroy me for it. So you still perform, you still earn love like it's a salary, you still believe deep down that rest is laziness and vulnerability is a character flaw. Simple moments become minefields. A friend says I'm here for you, and your body floods with suspicion. Someone offers help and you feel shame instead of relief. You cancel plans not because you're busy, but because the idea of being seen when you're not on feels like walking naked into traffic. This is the philosophical weight no one talks about. You're grieving a childhood you can never get back while simultaneously punishing yourself for grieving it. Now watch how that hidden pain shows up in your adult life, not as obvious trauma, but as the quiet ways you keep abandoning yourself. You become the friend who always listens but never shares, the partner who gives 110 and then resents the 10 you receive in return. You overfunction at work until burnout feels like home because achievement was the only love language your parents ever understood. You say yes when your entire body screams no, then hate yourself for the resentment that follows. You feel like an imposter the moment anyone praises you, because praise once came wrapped in criticism. Boundaries feel selfish. Needing space feels like betrayal, and when someone truly sees you, really sees you, your first instinct is to run, because being fully known once meant being fully criticized. These aren't personality traits, they are coping strategies wearing the mask of personality. They are the adult body still trying to protect the child who once had no protection. The unlearning begins the moment you stop calling these patterns just the way I am and start calling them what they are: the lifelong echo of toxic parenting. The first step is witnessing, not fixing, not rushing to positivity, just witnessing when the old voice says you're too much. Pause and ask the child inside you, what did you need back then that no one gave you? When you catch yourself shrinking in a conversation, notice it. When you feel that familiar emptiness after a successful day, don't numb it, name it. This is inner child reparenting. This is the moment you finally become the safe adult you never had. Healing is not about erasing the past, it's about refusing to let the past keep renting space in your present. It's shadow work, inviting the angry, needy, difficult parts of you back into the room instead of exiling them like your parents did. It's learning to say out loud, I deserved better, without immediately feeling guilty for saying it. It's choosing softness on purpose. It's letting yourself cry in front of someone safe. It's asking for help and not apologizing for the ask. It's building a nervous system that finally believes I am allowed to take up space, even when I'm not useful. Bessel van der Kolk wrote, in the body keeps the score, that trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. Your body kept the score, but your body can also learn a new song. So here is the truth I want you to carry out of this video. You were never broken, you were burdened with a love that demanded you parent your own parents. That burden was never yours to carry, and the moment you set it down, not by forgetting, but by finally feeling, you don't become fixed, you become whole. The child who once had to earn oxygen is now allowed to breathe freely. The adult who once had to earn love is now allowed to simply receive it. If this video found the exact wound you've been carrying in silence, do two things for that younger version of you. Hit the like button so the algorithm shows it to someone else who's still trapped in that house, and type one word in the comments, witness, so we all know we're no longer doing this alone. You don't have to stay emotionally orphaned anymore. The door is open. You were always worthy of walking through it. And now, finally, you get to decide what kind of parent you will be to yourself. I will see you in the next one. Until then, breathe, you're safe now.